All right. Going to tell you a little bit about Brad. Brad McIntyre is the owner of McIntyre Farms. He's a fourth-generation farmer from Caldwell, Idaho. His family business focuses on soil health and creating nutrient-dense crops. He serves as a supervisor for the Owyhee Soil Conservation District, and he is a proud farmer. Jason, you want to share anything else?
Yeah, just I guess a quick story on Brad. I mean, I talked about it a little bit, but I'd say the Carbon Summit, the idea, the concept really came to life or started at McIntyre Farms. So it was only appropriate that Brad is here to tell the story of how they transitioned, you know, or how their family through generations has made it to where they are today, and they're practicing regenerative ag principles and really showing what it can do.
Reduce waste, cost, and CO2 with PowerNot. The PowerNot Liquid Food Composter, or LFC, is a cost-effective, clean, and environmentally friendly waste food disposal solution. The LFC is a commercial biodigester that uses a series of processes where microorganisms break down waste food into nutrient-rich grey water that's safe to discharge into your drainage system. With the PowerNot LFC, you can say goodbye to the messy and expensive business of handling waste food forever. The PowerNot LFC is perfect for a range of different industries that handle waste food or produce. With a PowerNot LFC at your facility, your employees won't waste time and risk possible injuries by pushing heavy bins outside for collection. You'll dramatically increase your facility's hygiene and reduce flies, rodents, and other vermin in and around your waste bins. It works all day, every day, and never needs emptying. You simply add waste food as it's generated. And by diverting your waste food from landfill, you'll be significantly reducing your facility's carbon footprint. 1 kilogram of waste food equates to 4.2 kilos of CO2 equivalent. If you discard 100 kilograms a day, it causes 153 tons of CO2 a year. That's the same emissions as driving a car 30,000 kilometers, or more than the entire trip around Australia. One of PowerNot LFC's strongest features is the accurate monitoring and reporting of the device inputs and outputs, allowing you to access vital data, both graphically and numerically, to better understand operational practices. You can easily access information anywhere, anytime, via the cloud-based software from computer, tablet, or smartphone. And the LFC can also send emails, like alerts for maintenance, or to keep you updated with periodic reports. There are 8 models which dispose of between 20 and 1,800 kilograms of food waste per day. For most businesses, payback in savings from the LFC is under 36 months and comes with a 3-year warranty. To find out more on how the PowerNot Liquid Food Composter can revolutionize your business, visit the website.
Bottom right corner is Frank, and his family came to this area because of the canals, because of the project that was going on of getting irrigation to the valley. And so that's how we settled into the Caldwell area. And he's on the left here. My grandfather, Garth Buchanan, came because of the water got here, and then he was also a dairyman. And so dairymen it's in my blood. I've sometimes thought about going back, and my dad keeps pushing me down and says, don't do it. But it's near and dear to my heart. So family's very important to me, and that is what I hope to do, is continue to pass that on to the next generation and do my best as a steward of the land. So my story starts in 2008, the fall of 2008. I show you this picture of rocks because that's what we were doing. We were picking rocks. We're right down on the Snake River plain. And so as we tilled, every fall, every spring, even sometimes in the summer, if we were changing crops, we had to pick a rock. And I hated it. I absolutely hated picking rocks. And so I went on the old information superhighway, and I was trying to find a rock picker. Big, wide ones, so I could get the job done fast, and I could save all this time. Well, what I came across was an article on no-till and soil health. And it was mainly no-till, and how when this farmer in Minnesota stopped tilling his land, is that something I'm doing? Where's that? We're good. So as he stopped tilling the land, the soil was able to, it raised and they didn't touch the rocks anymore. And I was like, man, that's incredible. I can save diesel, I can save passes, and in the end, it's going to save me money. And so I started Googling no-till, and a national no-till conference came up. And one of the main speakers was Ray Archuleta. And I didn't know who this guy was, but he was the face of this conference. So it was in 2 weeks. Me and my brother got tickets. We flew out to Indiana to this national no-till conference, and we go into this keynote speaker, and it's Ray Archuleta, and I thought the guy was on drugs, because he was more hyper than today. I mean, he was going nuts about soil health and how cool it was and all these things, and I'm like, I'm here to learn how to like run a piece of equipment, like what's the best piece of equipment to fix my rock picking, and as I listened to him, I caught the fever. And it just made sense. It settled in on me that I needed to listen to him. And I needed to learn as much as I could from him, because that's what was important, was soil health. Yet no-till was a tool, but soil health was the message. And so rock picking, all the way down the line, it got me there. So I'm leaving this talk that Ray gave, and I'm pumped. I'm like, man, I've never heard of this in Idaho. This is crazy. I've got to figure this out. And another one, as you look at the list of speakers, one of the rooms was a fellow by the name of Gabe Brown, and it was titled something, A Farmer's Perspective, or how to real life in soil health. And so I go to this next talk, and it just lit me on fire even more. A farmer that's really doing what Ray's talking about, a government employee, they always knock on the door, we're here to help you. And it never worked. But okay, Ray, I'm fired up, but I go to Gabe, and it keeps it going. And I remember walking up to Gabe after that. I stood in this long line, and I said, I'm from Idaho, and I've never heard of this. I don't know of any farmers doing it. And he said, well, pull out your notebook, and he wrote his phone number down, his cell phone down. And that's what I loved about the community, that of the no-till, but of the soil health community, is everyone's open, and we're there to share. And from that point, it was a friendship that it built, and we've just been so blessed to just dive in head first and learn about soil health and how critical it is to this whole carbon and this whole problem that we talk about of how to heal the earth, because we only have one earth. We don't have, Ray talks about, planet B. We don't have that. So how do we figure it out? And we have to do it on our little farms, and every farm that you're a part of, or your yard, or whatever. We have to figure it out in those situations. And so every time I went to a new conference that winter, we went to multiple ones, they kept trading their secrets. Everyone talks about trade secrets. Well, they did that. That's what I love about this, is everyone traded their secrets, and so we learned so much. We went home, and I told my dad that he was going to have to sell his plow, and you should have saw the look on his face. He's like, no, that's not happening. And so he said, I'll give you one field, and you can try your no-till on that field. And so we bought a drill out of Georgia. It came in pieces. We got this thing figured out. We planted our crop that next spring, no-tilled it in, and he watched that, for the first season, and it blew his mind. He couldn't believe that it was the heaviest soil we had. It was behind alfalfa, so it was supposed to be super compacted, which, yeah, there was some compaction, but it worked, and it just changed his mind. And so that fall, he went to a conference with us, and he has been a great champion ever since then. I'll have to admit, he's one of the best fathers you could ever want, and he allows us to change, and we still do crazy things, and he runs with it, because it gets crazier. So this is the current drill we have, and I show you this experiment we did. This was our first huge cover crop mix that we did, and where we integrated cattle. This was 2013, so 2009 we started, And we had worked cover crops in, we had worked no-till in. These were all tools for regenerating our soil, but we were missing the cattle piece. We were missing the animal piece. And so that's the drill we still currently use, John Deere. We have 1560, 1590. We love the John Deere drills. That's the big mix that we did. It was 15 different species. And this is when we integrated the cattle. So it was 300 head off of the Owyhee Mountain Range. It was a fire that year, so they were very skinny. They're called Shelly cows. They were Shelly and bred. But they came on, and you should have seen the cowboys. The cowboys, they were actually jumping them out of a truck into the field, and they had all these cowboys on horses because they thought they were just going to run. They thought they've never seen irrigated fields before, so they had them all around the borders. And those cows went down and just head right into that crop. And they didn't lift their heads for a couple hours. I mean, they just ate and ate and ate. And we started, we were in 3-acre paddocks, but that first day we were about a 10-acre paddock. And we only had one cow get out, and she got pushed through the hot wire when they were watering. So great success. They trained right up to it, and it just got better. We used temporary fence to move them. They hadn't been on hot wire before, and they trained up really fast. And it's because they had good feed, and every day we moved them. Yeah, I just show you, because we were fully irrigated, so you can see what they do to a wheel line. We hadn't been around it, so they unbuckled every section of wheel line really fast. But what I like is, as you look in this picture, all those little shiny spots is either manure or urine, and it's spread. We didn't know what we were doing, but it ended up being a perfect grazing job for what we were going for, and the manure and urine were spread perfectly, and it was just an explosion for the soil. Now, that spring I had went out behind this cover crop, and I'd called Marlon Winger. He was our state agronomist for the NRCS at that time, and I said, hey, come out. Every time I kick a cow patty over, the worms just go everywhere. So I want to do a square foot test on how many worms are in that square foot. And they say 10 in a square foot is really healthy soil. Well, we had 165. And what they were, you can see a few big worms in those pictures, but most of them were about a half-inch long. When we had added those cattle in that manner, in a daily rotation, so the manure and urine were really covered, we woke up the biology in the soil. It came alive. It sat there dormant who knows how long, but those worms were able to hatch and really go. And that field has never been the same since. It is a really heavy clay soil. It's an old lake bottom. And that field has been our best ever since. And so we always try to mimic that experiment. We haven't been able to get it exactly, but we sure try hard every year. And so they talked about, it's now 6 principles. With context is missing here, but this is what we do. We try to keep the soil armored all the time. We try to keep as much carbon in our cover crop mix as we can so it doesn't disappear fast. We minimize soil disturbance, and no-till usually is on the forefront of soil disturbance, but chemicals are a soil disturbance. Erosion, wind, and excess rain when the soil is not armored, that's disturbance to the soil. Plant diversity, they always talk about, there was a book that came out that 40 chances or 40 something, anyways, they say the average farmer has 40 chances of planting crops. Well, what I love about cover crops and that plant diversity is you can have a 15-way mix and you just had 15 chances to make change in that biology in that soil. So the more that we can get that plant diversity going on our farms, the more we can affect that biology and make huge change. So always a living plant, and then that livestock integration is what really ramped up the biology and our soil health. So what we're seeing now, we're seeing that. We're seeing a soil that's resilient to those extreme weather events, those compaction events, but it's just really resilient. We're seeing carbon coming back into the soil. It's turning dark, and a lot of worms. And we're not only bringing life to the farm, but we're trying to bring more life to our community. What we're not seeing anymore, this was actually this spring. This is runoff from our neighbors, where we used to be, we did a lot of custom hay work. And so we have these big hay sheds, and there's a drain ditch that runs right here along it. Well, this is runoff from all the farms. They had just planted corn. We got an inch, I think it was an inch and a quarter in about 45 minutes. It was crazy for our area. And it just washed. And so this is brown water that couldn't make it down the drain. And I went and checked every one of my fields, and there wasn't a single puddle on the whole field. Ray came out last year when they did the school at our place. They did the water infiltration test, and we got over 30 inches an hour of rain infiltration on the test on our farm. And because we maintain those worm channels, the biological glues and everything that they call it the chocolate cake look, that water can go in, and it can go in fast. And so that rain event went into our soil, and we captured it. And we captured a lot of neighbors. This water that you see here went down another quarter mile and then started running over the road into one of our fields. And it was only making it about 100 feet into the field, and it was just soaking in. And so those areas got a lot of rain. But not only that, we captured more soil, right? It was pretty brown. And so it just makes, as you focus on regenerating your soil, it just takes those extremes and it buffers them. And if I had not had soil armor on my fields to buffer those raindrops, I would have had the same thing going on. A healthy soil can get degraded by a big event like this if it's not covered. You have to have cover. So what we like to do is we like to push ourselves and do trials. And this is one I did last year. If you can see the strips, that's cover crop in the middle, and these are 3 rows of corn. We plant 30-inch corn, and so I left 2 full rows off. I planted vegetables, and it was 50 different things down the center. Is really extreme, and I like to be extreme. So we planted all that down the center the same time we planted our corn, and I pushed the same population on the field. I just took those 2 rows and I pushed that population into those 3 missing rows. And I had to adapt my corn head to do this. I covered the rolls and stuff off so they didn't plug up with the cover crop. But when I harvested that, now I had pretty green vegetation for the cattle to eat as well as the stalks. And so during the year, as that stuff's growing, there was vegetables in there. So we had pumpkins and squash and cucumbers. We had leafy vegetables. There were some carrots out there. I mean, everything you could think of, we had out there. And so you could walk. It was kind of like a food forest. You walk out there and you could pick stuff and eat it. And it was just a fun experiment to see how crazy we could get. Have a little bit of a garden in amongst your cover crop or in amongst your cash crop, and it worked well. So we were able to have cash crop, have a cover crop, and also eat out of that same field. Now, everyone always asks, what was the yield, right? That's what we get, the money gets paid back on. It was 10 bushel lower than the pivot right next to it, but this is also hand lines. This is under a solid set hand line, which you always have a little bit lower yield on your corners. But I still think if I had it under the pivot, it'd been a little bit better, but which is fine. It was still awesome because we had a huge cover crop. I mean, it got over my head in spots. And we also had vegetables growing. So the other thing that changed is that diversity in there. When we turned the cattle in, we had a really nice cover crop in the pivot above them, but they liked being here better because there was so much diversity for their stomachs as well. So we knew that we loved the animals. We knew that we needed animals, not just the neighbors' animals. And so we ended up creating McIntyre Pastures. And you see here my father and mother in the middle, my wife, Jill, and our 6 kids. My son Heston's here with me today in the back. And my brother Ben, his wife Maria. Maria is who most people talk to and deal with for the sales part, and their 4 children. We are McIntyre Pastures, and there's a lot of cousins that come home to work at times. Because I come from a family of 9, so it's all about family. But we're right here in Caldwell, and we sell the meat and eggs into this area. This is a picture in front of one of our laying hen houses that we built. We run about 2,800 laying hens that follow the cattle, and so we mimic nature. As the bison roamed this earth, huge flocks of birds followed them, and so we try to do the same thing on our farm. And so I have this, Gabe Brown has a similar slide, but the green spots on this slide are what we get income from on our farm. So as you look through that, there's a lot to digest there, but we still have our cash crop side, which we do cover crop that we sell to Green Cover Seed in Nebraska. They then will distribute those seeds throughout North America mainly, and some throughout into the world. And so those are the crops that we raise multiple types of brassicas, teff grass, hairy vetch, phacelia for them, and then so that gets us the money. Then we have our cover crops that boil down into our animal side, pork, poultry, and our cow-calf. Then we have our steers for grass-finished beef, and we have ducks, turkeys, broilers, and layers. And that all goes into the retail market. And then we also sell honey. We do agritourism, education, because I feel it's very important that we educate the community and the people around us. And then we also do custom no-till planting right there close to around our farm. So a lot more diverse than where we were. We were had a 4-crop rotation before and did our custom haying. And so we are able to spread the risk. That's the big thing in agriculture, is that we can spread that risk out. If we have a down year somewhere, there's other things that are going to do the heavy lifting to bring that income. And that's just some pictures. We try to mix our cover crop seed production together. So there's triticale and hairy vetch together. Hairy vetch is a tough crop to raise, and so if it can grow together, you can get a little bit better production. And then there's also hairy vetch and a brassica mixed together on the right. And those, with the hairy vetch mixed in there, typically that brassica is about shoulder high. It was actually 7 feet tall last year with that mix. And so we were able to take that seed and split it at the seed house. And so then we were able to sell those 2 crops as individuals. So on our grass-finished beef, here's a few. You can see on the picture on the left, you can see some of the bee boxes. We have irrigated pastures with buried sprinklers, so we're kind of confined to those paddock sizes. The steers go 2 paddocks in front of the cows, and so they take the cream off, and then the cattle follow with the calves and clean up behind, and then the chickens are following them. And so our layers are what follow. The broilers stay in their own pasture, and we move the cows to them and graze in front so that it stays short, and then they get pulled out. But so people always talk about grass finished, can't have marbling, and there's a lot of advocates here today for that. But it's time, and it's good grass. You can have marbling, and you can have really good product. We do pigs as well. They get rotated on pasture as well, and they get free choice grain that we raise on the farm. We feed them for the triticale seed, all the chaff or the screenings from that. We mix it with peas, and that's what they get with mineral, and then they get free choice to that, and then they get to rotate in the grass. We started with them out in the pasture, in the main pasture. They just tore everything up, and so they got confined into their set acreage that they rotate all the way around on that, and then we'll put cover crop next to them, and they can go out into that. But we don't let them cover on the whole farm, because I'd have to do more tillage behind them, because they're tilling everything. And so some of the direct sales that we do with that. These are our laying houses that we designed and built after we went and saw a couple different places around the nation of what they had, and we kind of designed our own to what fit us. These will hold up to 1,000 hens in each house. We have 3 of them. Feed on the side, and we have a central lay box that goes down the middle, so we just collect in one place off the back. Saves labor, and that's a big thing in this animal business, where we're touching everything so much that you got to save labor, and it works really well. So we move those every day, into a new area, they can go, and we call them the pasture sanitation crew, because they clean up behind the cows, they spread the pats out. You know, you got your fertilizer area, and the chicken will make a fertilizer area. That's what's so cool about them. They spread those nutrients out, they get the larva out, so it reduces flies, just like, you know, nature did before and still does. The birds come in and they clean up. And they do eat a lot of grass. They eat a lot of broadleafs. They love it. That's a chicory plant those chickens are getting after, and they love it. And this is how we sell them to the public. And so this is a video of our broiler operation from when we get them all the way till they're packaged. It goes quick, and they grow quick too. The biggest thing that we are trying to provide, we give people what they're used to in the store, is that broad-breasted, you know, broiler chicken. They're used to that, and so we give them a lot better life and a better, they're able to eat grass and better grains that then trans into better meat, and so they're, you know, we're able to give them what they're used to, but as a better product. So these are also houses that we designed. The industry always wants to pull them lengthwise like this, and these birds, anybody who's been around broilers, they don't walk very well. They'll get tired easy, so you would get about halfway, and then you're stressing them out as you're pushing them forward. So we designed these houses we designed them to pull sideways, so we pull them 15 feet instead of 60 feet, and so they walk and move really easy. Our job's easier, their job was easy, and then they're on to new grass. So that's how we manage the broilers for the meat production on chickens. We have our turkeys. Everyone loves baby turkeys. They're very curious animals. They're a pretty fun animal to have on the farm. But we raise these specifically for Thanksgiving. We do between 200 and 300 a year for the valley, and they are awesome at getting grasshoppers. If you have a grasshopper problem, that's your farm friend right there. And then we also do one batch of meat ducks a year. They're in a whole different, my sister-in-law does those. They're just a whole different breed, but they're also fun to have around. So what I think is so cool about this whole thing is it just takes everything to make the whole. And as we look at regeneration, it's just not one thing that we can go out and do. It's a whole set of tools and processes that will get us to that point. I couldn't just do no-till and have a healthy soil. You know, I couldn't just add animals and have healthy soil. You have to have the whole thing, and it's those 6 principles really. You got to do them all, and as you integrate all those things together, you know, the health of the whole system, it explodes, and not only of the soil, but of your business, of your family. I get to work with my children every day. My brother, before we were in tractors, driving everywhere. Never could have them around because there's a liability to have children around. And so now we work as a family, and we get to sell product to other families. We get to teach them about what we do, and it just brings a lot of fulfillment to my life. And it is all about the soil, because that's what we are, right? We're soil at the end of the day. When we're all done, that's one consistent thing about all of us. We will all die, and we go back to the soil. We need to focus on it. That's where our nutrients come from. And our farm slogan, or whatever you want to say, is your nutrients begin in our soil. And that's what it is. We feed our customers our healthy soil. That's what they're getting. And I just thank you for the opportunity to share our story. And I'm really humbled to be here. So thank you.